Hello, everybody. Welcome to Design Week Philippines 2022, Design for All. I'm your host and moderator for today, Batiquin of Holicow, PH. Earlier today, the session Design Roots Indigenous is Innovative just wrapped up. with speakers Jeannie Lakay and Noreen Bautista sharing projects powered by the indigenous wisdom and our country's rich heritage of artisanship. Today's session takes off with one of the buzziest words of lockdown era, pivot. In Design Reopened, Beyond the Pivot, our Pinoy design leaders will talk about weathering the pandemic and what it's truly like to conduct business and harness design in unusual, life-changing circumstances. We'll hear stories of creative perseverance that provide a good model for how designers and businesses can thrive in the face of impossible challenges. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge our Design Week partners. Together with the Design Center of the Philippines, DCP, Design Week Philippines is made possible by the Department of Trade and Industry, our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board, First United Building, Hub Make Lab, our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, our live stream partner, our official online magazine partner, our media and government partners, and our satellite events. Let's tell the Design Week story together. Post on your timelines, grids, and stories to capture the FOMO-worthy moments and quotable learnings. You'll find many in the panel to come, I promise. Use the hashtags DesignWeekPH2022 and hashtag #DesignForAll. Now, before we dive in, and I really would like to dive in, it is very exciting, let's do a quick warm-up, all right? On the screen in front of you will be a QR code, there it is, that leads to Mentimeter, where we'll get a sense check of what's on everyone's minds. If ever you have trouble accessing it via the QR code, you may log on to www.menti.com, that's MENTI, and use the code 37912093. Again, 37912093. You can also go to the chat to see the code if you have trouble. All right. As you settle into our Mentimeter, I'll give you a head start by sharing our 2 questions for today. First, in one word, and you're going to see them swimming in your screen right now, what is the best trait of Filipino designers and creatives? All right. For me, that would be cheeky. I come from a background of furniture and image making, and I find that Filipino designers are unafraid to express exactly what we think in a very creative, very visual, and very humorous way. Some people are saying adaptive. Who said astig? Because I agree with you. Yeah, that's right. Whimsical, that is correct. Patient. Now hold on to that because I'll be coming back to that word later on when our speakers start showing their stuff. Cross-discipline, that is true. Resilient. Hang on to these words, all right? You will be seeing them in action later on. Now, one more question just before we start. Our second question of the day. On the 11th year of Design Week Philippines, what is your wish for Philippine design as the festival enters a new decade? For me, I wish for design to permeate non-visual aspects, which is the more popular sort of notion of design, but for them to permeate non-visual aspects like policy, like health, right? Like disaster risk management, like agriculture. These are aspects of everyday Filipino lives that are very important and very critical. And I feel that design can make it even better. All right. More collaboration, somebody says. Working across regions. Yes, please. As somebody based in Cebu, I would love that as well. We're seeing a lot of that happen right now, actually, with the programming that BCP has been doing. Well known around the world. I'm sure we are. Even more. Yeah? Tangible applications, and there you have it. Yes, exactly. I believe in that as well. Legitimacy from the public. That is a very interesting point. Let's see how our speakers can answer that later on, right? Integrate design into more fields outside of the creative area. Precisely. I feel like before every policy should be passed, it should go through the design center or something like that, right? Because it involves processes and systems making as well. All right? We're taking notes of everything that you are putting down because this is something that we'd like to see in action, okay? So let's get on to it. Our first speaker is Anya Lim of Anthill Fabric Gallery. Anthill Fabric Gallery is a social and cultural enterprise working on elevating Filipino weaving culture through circular and contemporary design that supports sustainable livelihood. Anthill builds the capacity of its partner communities by providing market access and transferring business skills so that they in turn can become successful and self-reliant entities. Everyone, Princess Ant herself, Anya. Mayang gabi niya.
Mayang gabi, EK. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a very, very interesting evening because I'm sure there's so much to learn from all the speakers. I'm just going to quickly share my screen and also share our pandemic journey. Okay, we are Anthill Fabric Gallery. It is an acronym for Alternative Nest and Trading or Training Hub for Indigenous or Ingenious at the Livelihood Seekers. Our core mission is to provide sustainable livelihood to our partner Filipino community artisans. And in this photo is our partner in Abra, and they're wearing a traditional tapi skirt with a shirt with a scrap weave in their pockets. And this is actually a result of a branding workshop that we did with them because they wanted to be able to parade in their fiesta with uniforms for recall. Now, we established Anthill to address these social issues, and I'm sharing this with you as it's very relevant in our journey and experience throughout the pandemic. We particularly want to be able to solve the gap in lack of economic opportunities for women, especially among those in the countryside and indigenous communities. Also, the lack of fair access to markets, but more importantly, the gap in knowledge of entrepreneurial skills among these artisans. And that's also why they're able to find it difficult to access markets or work with designers and creative entrepreneurs because they lack the skills to professionalize their supply chain. And so with these social issues, we have designed creative and innovative solutions to address this problem and create positive impact. So we are known for our ready-to-wear line and applying our weaves in contemporary and circular design. Anthill has been one of the pioneers in really elevating the value for weaves and making it accessible to everyday wear. We also have established, fortunately, our e-commerce platform and connections to our global community prior to the pandemic, which really was our saving grace when the pandemic hit. And to a lot of people's knowledge, at the at the forefront, we may be a fashion brand, but at the core of our work is really enterprise development and capacity building. And we facilitate that through an ecosystem model where we collaborate and work with designers and production partners to be able to serve our customers and our artisans. Again, at the core of our work is really impact. And we do this through our community enterprise development program. People get the impression that we're so good at designing clothes, but I would say that more than that, I think we take pride so much in being able to design programs that really provide enabling environments for our communities to become self-reliant. And here we tap into financial literacy, cultural appreciation. And I think what I want to put emphasis on is our Master and Apprentice program, where we augment the income of our master artisans with a condition that they actually teach an apprentice. And their income is augmented by 20%, and this goes to a forced savings program, which allows them to use it and invest it in other entrepreneurial ventures. And this largely contributed to how they were able to adjust given the pandemic impacts and limitations. We work across the country, and this is actually something that makes our work very interesting and dynamic. However, during the pandemic, the geographical limitation was also the biggest challenge in the work that we do. So what happened during the pandemic? 2020 was supposed to be a big year for Anthill. We turned 10 and we had a lineup of pop-ups locally and internationally. And in the past years before the pandemic, we were actually having a supply problem, which was a good problem to have. There was a huge demand for the work that we do through our clothes and working with other companies, like serving business-to-business accounts. So in 2019, we really kind of pounded on improving our production capacity and our supply chain. And one way of Anthill's creating impact to the communities is through social procurement. So we also aggressively procured so many raw materials and also had so many finished goods manufactured to prepare for our big celebration. But obviously, when the pandemic hit, all those plans were thrown out the door. And this is kind of where we were at. We had to close our retail store in Cebu, and every day we were just making masks and shipping masks. But in 2020, we put our foot down and we said we are going to prioritize and commit to people over profit. And we did that, and we were able to sustain our business for the year through the support of our global community of proud weave wearers who had a higher purchasing power. And I think in that year, people were really invested in the survival of the business. And so they all showed up for us. However, in 2021, we had to rethink what it means for us to actually commit to our purpose. And as I mentioned earlier, our mission is really to provide sustainable livelihood, and that the core of our work is capacity building. And given the limitations of the pandemic, the losses, the revenue being cut to half, our team also dealing with a lot of mental health issues, having to let go of a lot of the supply chain operations, we had to make the difficult decision of letting go of a ready-to-wear line. This was one of the most difficult decisions we made, given the fact that we were actually able to start or spark a movement of contemporary weave wearing through our clothes, and we were able to build an established community through our clothes. But we had to give it up because we weren't liquid. And if we didn't have financial resources, we're not able to continue our impact work, which was more important for us. However, in 2021, we also felt that we were being driven away from doing impact work because we just kept pushing products and marketing. We couldn't also produce new items, new products. Design was such a challenge for us given the limitations of lockdown and communication. And we thought it was unfair for our in-house production, what we call our sewing chamber, to have so much uncertainty in terms of their pay, in terms of their income, and also in terms of like their job security. So in the same year, I personally had decision fatigue because again, we had to make the difficult decision of letting go of our in-house production. And these women have worked for us for 10 years. And we had to think of ways on how we can transition them to becoming our production partners and how else we can support them in terms of sustaining their income and livelihood. This was a beautiful mess for the past decade. And then slowly, it just all became piles of clothes that we had to sell. That moment also was very humbling to us because it brought us back to what we are really good at, what our strengths are. And the way we kind of adopted to the challenges of the pandemic was to really leverage on our strengths. We collaborated a lot with designers here and abroad to come up with products that are more relevant in the market, that are aligned with what was essential and what would be in demand. We also leveraged on our online assets, and everyone was very much active and present online. And we had to do our part also in being present for the community and making ourselves relevant. So we used the time to really connect with our community, establish meaningful connections through consumer education, workshops, advocacies, and authentic storytelling. And that really deepened their appreciation of Anthill. We were more than just a fashion brand. And it was also good to be able to deepen that relationship with our community, not just within the Philippines, but also globally. We also took the time to listen and connect with our partner artisans and see how we can support them, even with limited resources, in adjusting to the pandemic. And so a lot of them have expressed that they really want to be able to adapt to the changing times. They tried selling on Facebook, Shopee, and Lazada, but these are saturated marketplaces, and they also don't know how to use the technology to be able to sell their products. And so with that, in 2021, we launched the very first community fabric store that directly serves our partner artisans to fulfill their dream of weaving tradition and technology. We also had to pivot and change the way we position the store. And in the past, it's all clothes, but now it's all fabrics. And now we are able to expand our market and not just work with customers who wear our products, but also with designers and crafters, hobbyist makers who are able to elevate the value and of our fabrics and create something wonderful out of them. We continue to create impact even despite the limitations. But as you can tell, in our other impact indicators in terms of income and productivity, it really had a decline. But we're also take pride in showing that despite that, we were very creative and innovative, and our efforts to actually increase our circularity programs have translated into impacts in terms of the number of kilos we have upcycled. Now, we committed a lot of failures during the pandemic, but I think it was also a very rich journey and experience, learning opportunity that also brought so much success and allowed us to endure until now. I think what I want to share is that the greatest investment that you could do, that we did, was really investing in people, because they are your greatest resources. And so we really honor the power of pause throughout the past 2-3 years and invested so much in creating a positive coaching culture within our community, within our team, establishing more learning systems, and also building our community internally and also outside. We also learned that communication should always be very participatory. And so this is when we used our online platforms to really engage and connect more with our customers and with our artisans. Finally, this is a very humbling lesson that success isn't just about numbers, and it's not just all about scaling. I think what happened during the pandemic was we were able to scale deep versus scaling wide. And in that process of introspection, we were able to actually discover what we were really good at and know that it was enough for us to be able to keep ourselves alive and to thrive even with all the limitations we had to go through. The biggest lesson is that no one is ever alone, and there's so much power in having a community, and you just really have to be able to connect with that community and continually build it. In one of our roundtable discussions with our stakeholders, the word interconnectedness was what really surfaced, and it really shone through. And I think I want to share the richness of our Filipino world. They said the ugnayan of kultura, kaalaman, kalusugan, and kalikasan was so powerful during the pandemic. We are all one, and there really is so much power in that. And I think what allowed us to really be able to still stand tall and weave forward was honoring this interconnectedness and all these aspects of health, culture, knowledge, and nature. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anya. On the retail level, Anthill is making Filipiniana modern and accessible and relevant. But on a deeper cultural level, it ensures legacy and sustainability through appreciation and support of the technique and the communities that weave our cloth. Anthill proves design is embedded in community, and every choice affects a bigger whole. Do you choose to use sustainable material? Do you choose to invest in people? You do not walk alone. Thank you so much, Anya. Now, our next speakers are Kay Aranzanzo, Petra Gana, and Corinne Serrano, who form part of And a Half. And a Half is an independent design studio that believes in the transformative power of thoughtful and inspired work. With every partner and brand, And a Half is guided by the belief that value creation happens when they do better with design. Welcome, Kay, Petra, and Corinne. Hello.
Hello, hi everyone. So on behalf of And a Half, we just want to introduce ourselves. I'm Petra. I lead the organization development of the studio. This is Corinne. She leads service development. And this is Kay. She is the head of workshops. And today we'll tell you about our story going through the pandemic and just share with you a few insights that we took from the experience and hopefully can, share with everyone also in the creative community. All right. Great. Okay. So hello everyone. Really thankful to have had this opportunity and to have this opportunity also to speak to everyone about how the pandemic was for us. I guess just a little introduction first. And a Half is an independent design studio dedicated to creating thoughtful and inspired work. And we actually celebrated our 10th year anniversary this year. So back in 2012, we were formed by a group of 3 friends. And now to this day, we are 10 strong. So we're actually a small and effective team of designers, strategists, and project managers. And it's really important to note that we intentionally keep it small. We're a boutique design studio. And that's because we really value the team dynamic, the culture, and the voices that each of us have, and the unique perspectives that all of us creatives have within the team. in terms of our working history, it's been a privilege to have worked on over 600 projects in different industries also. So not just food. We actually started with Las Flores and BGC, if you guys know that restaurant. We started there. But we've been lucky enough to work with NGOs, with retail, with tech, with government, and with different media companies, and just really work on things that matter to people. At the end of the day, our work really just stems from a partnership of shared values. When we can find that commonality, that dream that our partners want to bring to life, that's when we can produce our best work and our best brands. So just a few samples of people that we've worked with. But I think regardless of this list, whether you're big or small, at the end of the day, what we really are about is collaboration. And that's where our name comes from. It's blank and a half, maybe design center and a half for now. And we see it because design is really two halves coming together and producing something more than the sum of its parts. It's two halves coming together and producing something that creates impact. And I think from this name, we really want to just break down and tell a story also of how collaboration has continued to matter so much to us as we discover also who we are and what we want to do with our service and what we want to achieve as a studio. So let's go all the way back to 2019 and talk about how we were before everything happened. And it seems like such a faraway world, but just remembering how things operated pre-pandemic on the team side, and I think freelancers and design studios can relate. It's just about consistent expansion, hiring people every year, just looking for more and more people to add to the team. That was us. 2012 onwards, we just kept hiring because that was the norm. On the work end, it was all about scale and volume. How can I get more projects? How can I get more clients? How can I expand my workload capacity for a month? Because I want to earn more. I want to provide more for the team. And we were kind of stuck in this loop, which definitely was the main source of why we burned out in 2019, because we felt like it was just, this endless cycle of work. And as creatives, we wanted to change. Coming into 2020, we were thinking we wanted to take a risk. We wanted to explore other business models and other ways of working as creatives that were outside of the volume-based model. We wanted to actually, try something different because at the end of 2019, we were so burned out and we were so jaded. But as we all know, the pandemic happened. And our year of risk coincided with the biggest risk of all, which was COVID and the pandemic. And I think definitely the way we can describe 2020 and early 2021 was just a year of putting out fires. It was firefighting. This is us, the burning man and also the shocked person. We were literally, it was so dramatic and it affected, both aspects of our work, from the team to actually our work in general, right? So on the team end, we experienced health challenges. I think that was mentioned also in Anthill, not just physical, but mental as well. And I think coming into 21, definitely the after effect of that was that wave of the Great Resignation. We actually had a lot of our team members move forward for a lot of just realizations that they came to as they were thinking about their priorities and the industry in general. For work, at the first 3 months of the pandemic, there was no work. We had creative work, and I guess the budgets of all these companies, they took a back seat. So all of the budget was reduced and we had no volume to scale. So we were at this question mark point in our lives where we didn't know what to do. And it was really a reckoning for us as a studio. And as a small studio, especially, it really just affected us and posed the question, how can our practice evolve? If something like this happens, how can we think of things differently? How can we rethink the way that we work? And this time was really, I would say, all about introspection and rediscovery, not just as a studio, but as individual creatives. How can we go beyond our practice? What are our strengths and weaknesses? And who are we as creatives? So if you guys remember, or if ever, you're part of our community, in 2020, we just said, let's do everything. Let's try everything. So we tried to get into retail. We tried to do this coded design experiment. We held an event. We held SPDP in partnership with Design Week. We created fonts. We created a a public space group. We even did content creation for design dialogues, and we just wanted to explore. But after all of this, what we realized is that it wasn't feasible. Because all of this we did, just running on adrenaline. We actually did everything for free. We didn't have any budget for it. It wasn't sustainable, and we reached again that burnout point that made us question, why are we doing this? But that's definitely something we don't regret, because after exploring all of the options and opportunities we have as creatives, we realize like what are the things we're good at and where do we want to focus. And that's what really our experiments led us to. It led us to growth. And it led us to realize that as a creative, you don't have to force yourself to do everything. You don't have to force yourself into work that's not for you to earn. There's a space to play and there's a space to work. And we had to find that focus. And that's what led us to these two questions. How can we expand our reach without scale? And how can we build more value for design in the Philippines? So for our first question, I'll turn it over to Koei, who will tackle what we did in this field.
Hello, guys. Sorry about that. So, coming from what Petra mentioned, growth for us, the linear model of growth wasn't working for us anymore. And through the years, we always hit that roadblock, that ceiling, whether that was through finances or through the team's burnout. So, we really had to rethink of a model of growth that would be aligned with EndaHav's values and our personal vision also for the organization. So we started to look around. And we realized that in most industries, the linear or hierarchical growth was still something that people followed. And we really looked at this point in time, we were looking for solutions, and we were really inspired by nature and how rich and abundant the ecosystems around us for growth were already there. So we listened and learned, and we really adapted how nature was able to evolve for survival, how they're able to self-organize, how they're able to make genuine connections that lead for growth, not just for one side, but also in all sides. So we really started to think in ecosystems, not just in our service, but also in our organization. The big question here was, how can creatives help creatives? And again, as Petra mentioned, during that time, everyone was on the same boat. We were all experiencing different problems, firefighting here and then. A lot of freelancers had to pivot to a more sustainable income source. So we were really thinking about this, and we wanted to create a system where creatives could grow and thrive alongside each other. So this year, we launched our community of practice. We organically developed this through the pandemic to really pivot and look for solutions that were not necessarily a linear way of growing, but how could we still grow? And by doing so, I think we realized that it really works. It's a healthy ecosystem, not just in terms of how we can learn from each other, how we can expand our perspectives, but really just creating a healthy environment for people to do their best work. And yeah, and this is a sample of our registration form. And I think one thing that I just want to point out here is that we weren't looking for what they could contribute to and a half. In fact, in our registration form, we really ask about them, about how they want to grow as creatives, about their dream projects. And this is on the right, this is our internal database. So we can match them with opportunities of and a half and really share it with our greater community. So feel free to register now. This is a link to the QR code if you're interested. But really, I just want to end this part by saying how it's so important for this time to rethink and reimagine how we do things, whether that's in business or your own creative practice. I think collaboration, reciprocity, and sharing is so important. And this is our collective power, our collective creativity that we can use for the good. So I'll pass it over to Kay to talk more about how we empower creative thinking.
All right, sorry about that. So in this part, we're going to talk about the work and the services that we sort of pivoted to as we grew into the years after 2020. So we asked ourselves, coming from all of the learnings and all of the losses and wins over the pandemic, how can we pivot to a more sustainable business model? And at the heart of our services, of course, is that what we want to impart to our clients, to our partners and collaborators, is that creative thinking is needed to solve a lot of problems, especially those that are complex. We also wanted this idea to allow for more creatives to thrive and grow, because coming off again from the pandemic, there's really this need for creative problem solving, storytelling, and dreaming, all of which we already do as a studio. So how could we reach more creatives? How can creatives ourselves as creatives help other creatives? And with that, we launched workshops in the half. And this is our way of expanding our reach by providing design and creative thinking education that empowers more and more creatives. So we started with offering our processes and our approach to different brand teams and creative teams, and eventually expanding to the 3 services that you see below. And this at the heart of this, of course, is really just helping creative teams find their voice inside their organization. So whether it's corporations or independent or small studios or groups from different organizations, we really wanted to invite and empower them to apply a creative problem-solving mindset in the practice, both professional and personal. And these are just samples of the workshops that we held in the past year or so. Of course, we're still coming from the pandemic, so we were able to design both online and in-person learning experiences. And this really gave us this inspiration and gave us this drive to really continue on with the work that we do as in the half. We were able to guide local creatives, for example, from the District 4 of Pangasinan through a branding process with local MSMEs. We were able to mentor the creative team of Unilab and also introduce this design thinking mindset to the different departments of New Clark City. And those are just like a few samples, and we're really proud and happy that we're able to connect with these creatives. And at the core of every of our pivot is really empowering the designers, empowering the future and the industry as a whole. Together with the community of practice, we wanted to really come out of the 10-year 10 years worth of experience that we have as in the half to maximize our learnings, our time and effort, all of those experiences and experimentations that Petra mentioned before that align with our values as in the half and continue to grow our services. But yes, to close, of course, now we realize that now is the time for integration. What does it look like to apply all of these learnings? What does it look like to grow your team in the time of coming off from the pandemic? What did we learn? We learned how to work collaboratively outside of our small studio. We connected with a lot of creatives from all over the Philippines. And we also redefined our main services so that we can have spaces that are meant for play. The heart of it all, of course, is that what we want to do as in the half is that we want to do better with design. We want to continuously explore and grow and evolve and just really navigate all of these changes as creatives in the community while also being true to our core values. So thank you so much, everyone. We, Petra, Kobe, and I are really thankful to be part of this talk and just really be able to share all of our learnings coming off from the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone from And a Half. Flowers bloom when plants are exposed to stress. Creative communities are organic entities, which means we have the power to turn risk into renewal and tension to anticipation. The traditional progression for most creative enterprises is scaling up, and this often comes at costs and revisions to the initial creative values and formats. There is a way to build up and build laterally, using your own momentum as a brand and creative to likewise uplift standards, expectations, and eventually the community you serve. Thank you again to Kay, Petra, and Corinne. Closing our trifecta of speakers is someone I personally hold to be the embodiment of the perfect multitasker. Roma Agsalud Agsunod is one of two sisters who are the driving force behind Common Room. Common Room is a collaborative space that houses over 200 plus local crafters and brands. Its physical and digital platforms offer handmade curios and authentic craftwork from artists and artisans. Roma, it's so good to see you again. Hello.
Hi, Kay. Thank you so much for having me, Design Center of the Philippines. Thank you for this opportunity to share our story to this very important event for DCP and also to let me share this stage with colleagues that I look up to for years. My presentation for today will be a little bit different. It will have a lot of videos because the main pivot strategy of Common Room during the pandemic was to pivot to the online space. And we have, from a shared physical space, we now have a shared online channel on YouTube on top of a shared web shop for our community of makers and artists. So let's start. From Common Room.
Hi everyone, I'm Maan.
I'm Roma.
Yes.
We're from Common Room. So that's me and my sister Maan, co-founders of Common Room. And for those who don't know Common Room is a shared space of local makers and artists. We have shared physical stores in different parts of Metro Manila. We have one in Rockwell. We have one in Alabang Town Center, Ayala Malls, Manila Bay. We have a pop-up in SM Orate-Gig. And we also have a newly opened one in UP Town Center. Aside from our shared physical spaces, we also have a shared online shop, www.commonroomph.com, and a shared channel on YouTube. So how was life pre-pandemic? Uh, so our life pre-pandemic actually felt like a movie. um, my sister and I are breadwinners, so we needed to help out with the family expenses. So we put up a small brand called Pop Junk Love and only had an initial capital of 5,000 pesos when we started. After a decade of juggling our bazaars with our day jobs, we finally had the chance to open our dream space in Katipunan in 2015. So that's very long, from 2007 to 2015, before we were able to open our dream space. And we got to share this with other creatives because the space was too big for our small brand, Pop Junk Love. And from there, the rest is history. Year after year, we were able to open a store, a bigger one than Katipunan. From just 33 makers, we were able to include over 100 makers in these homes. And in 2019, actually, we were able to open our biggest store to date, twice the size of our other stores. And we were able to house from 100 makers to 200 makers. So we opened that flagship store in 2019, late 2019, and we all know what happened a few months after 2019. The pandemic happened. So our rags to riches story
Paano na kami?
actually became our story. I'm sure a lot of small businesses can relate. So to share with you the impact of the pandemic to the community, we will let our 2020 selves share that story with you guys since they're living that moment. Baka mas authentic and mas genuine yung feelings nila.
Saan tayo pupulutin? Reality check namin. Nagsarado lahat eh. Saan na kami pupulutin? Kasi yun talaga yung main source of income ng not just us, but the entire community. So, nung nag-lockdown, and wala sa amin yung control nung spaces. Like, kahit anong pagpaplano namin, walang perang papasok sa store, walang kabuhayan na papasok for our makers. Yun talaga yung reality check eh. That we are so dependent on our spaces. Paano kung nawala siya? Katulad nung nangyari for the 3 months, nawala siya. Paano na kami? Saan tayo pupulutin? And we knew na if this extended, hindi talaga namin masusustain all the shops. So we really had to cut down 1 or 2 so that the rest will survive. It was a difficult discussion. Maraming mga tears na nag-shed.
So during the pandemic, like most businesses, we needed to recalibrate, we needed to evolve, we needed to be more than just a space. If you look closely at our logo, it's actually a 3D space. One side is a wall and another side is a wall. So it's a space because that was what Common Room was, a physical space, our dream store that we got to share with other local makers and artists. But when all of the stores closed, this symbol of our dream suddenly felt like a trap. This dream suddenly became our limitation. So kung wala na yung store, paano na kami? Hanggang doon na lang ba kami? So if you can see, Common Room is trapped inside that wall that we built to ourselves.
This space is already not fulfilling what the community needs eh. We need to grow out of this space so that we can continue yung mission ng space, which is to provide support to the community. So that's why we're moving out, because it cannot hold us anymore because we have so many things, so many plans in store for the community that the space can't contain anymore.
So for our pivot, for our relaunch, when we decided to close Katipunan, we didn't want it to be a sad goodbye. we wanted it to be a hopeful hello, and we wanted our logo to represent that. So as you can see, now the common room is no longer trapped within that
What we really
space.
wanted to do.
Common room is no longer trapped in that space. Let me just rewind. Common room is no longer trapped in a store. Now it can be a door to our next adventure, a next opportunity. Maybe it could be a screen of your cell phones when you're online shopping, or maybe a screen of your TV when you're watching YouTube. So now the possibilities are endless.
What we really wanted to do coming to this next phase is about redefining what space means for common room. Na hindi lang kami limited sa physical wall of a shop, but it's actually creating a different type of home so that we can do more.
So our first response during the pandemic, as mentioned, we made the tough choice of closing a store so we can save the others and actually do more. When we closed Katipunan, we were able to redirect the funds to a studio space that housed our web shop inventory. Pre-pandemic, Common Room actually had a web shop, but because the inventory of our stores, of our web shop is in stores, when the lockdown happened, we didn't have access to our stock. So when all businesses were pivoting online, Common Room's web shop closed. So talagang when we mentioned earlier that we had zero income coming in, literal na wala talagang pumapasok, and we felt so powerless. With our own studio space, now lockdown or not, hopefully we can still continue to cater to the needs of our shoppers. With the closing of Katipunan, we were also able to redirect some of our funds to our video content team. And hopefully in the future, that video arm will be able to generate income for the community, either through sponsorships or maybe commissions to our artists and maybe B2B. Our second response
Sa lahat ng
our second response was fostering connections despite the distance. So that's the main goal of our YouTube channel, because at that time, diba, everyone was uninspired. And if our community is not creating, if they are uninspired to create, paano na rin kami? Because Common Room is the community, right? So we wanted to inspire them by sharing stories of our makers through the YouTube channel. And we also wanted a way to connect with our shoppers na ito yung mga taong sinusuportahan nyo when you shop at our stores.
Uncertainty na nangyayari, yun lang yung one certain thing that we have. It's our why, which is to create a space, a home, a safe place for our makers. And hopefully we can share those stories with you, not through our stores now, but now through their stories and through the digital platforms, which makes it safer for you to actually communicate and reach them. Because you don't have to be together physically to connect, right? Even if we're far away from each other.
Okay, so mukha na siyang happily ever after, pero alam naman natin na hindi. Dahil after 2021,
In 2020,
2021 happened, and yung pagkabagsak namin ng 2020, mas may ibabagsak pa pala.
ang feeling is there seems to be no end to it. We're really not sure hanggang saan namin kayang mag-antay. Kasi for you to survive, it needs to stop now. Kaso nga, hindi eh. So I guess yun yung difference niya. In 2020, parang you can still wait. Baka, ganyan. 2021, like, nakakapit ka sa patalim, or baka wala na kaming magawang paraan.
So in 2021, doon namin na-realize, oh my God, hindi lang isang store ang pwedeng mawala sa amin. Pwedeng mawala lahat. Even Common Room pwedeng mawala. So what we did was we decided, okay, ano nang next step natin? Should we close the business? And then we realized, why should we decide to close the business unilaterally? We are in a relationship with our community. We shouldn't be the only ones deciding on this, because this is not just our livelihood. It is also the livelihood of the entire community.
I started conceptualizing on things we can do to somehow bring the community together. I'm sure a lot of them would really want to help fight for our homes. They just need a way to do it. And from that fact that our partners would like to help, dun umikot yung idea of creating something that we can do together. A common room-led product that we can do and sell, and 100% of proceeds will go to funding partner checks and augmenting operational expenses, because again, retail sales are still slow.
So that's what we did. We empowered the community to make the decision as well sa kung anong mangyayari sa common room. And ito yung napag-decide ng community. We empowered them, we gathered them, we brainstormed, and we released Kaleidoscope, a merch. This is very new to us because, again, we are a space. We don't create products. We offer space to creatives. So very scary itong move for us. But thankfully, with the help of the entire community, marketing, our fundraising, and also all of our shoppers who supported our fundraising, we were able to sell all of our 200 copies. We were able to fund our partner checks from the proceeds of the fundraising campaign, and also, of course, augment operational expenses. So, muntik na kaming magsarado, pero with the help of everyone na tumulong talaga to save our homes, we were able to hurdle that very difficult fork in the road. The last but not the least response to the pandemic is seizing opportunities despite the fear. Naiintindihan ko na nawalan tayo ng confidence to make business decisions at the time dahil pwede palang mawala lahat sa atin. Lahat ng pinaghirapan natin for many years, pwedeng mawala ng isang basta-basta na lang mawawala lahat. So, I encourage everyone also to seize opportunities despite the fear. Do the math, do the computations. Will the opportunities and the benefits outweigh the cost? And then despite the fear, seize the opportunity. And
Actually,
that's
until
when
now naman, medyo pa rin, we're still slowly recovering. So the idea of opening a new shop was out of our scope, but
we're here. Yes, because also of the trust of DTI Go Local. So, dahil sa partnership na to, naging possible that we come back here in Katipunan and in a bigger home.
Yes.
And with more makers.
Yes.
And with more artists.
Yes.
And with more small businesses. We knew at the time when we said yes to the space how difficult it is for us to do it on our own. So kahit may konting takot pa, we knew it was better than trying to do it on our own. Kaya kahit medyo takot pa kami, we knew it was a good opportunity not only for us but for all of our makers.
So, as mentioned earlier, we closed Katipunan, and after 2 years, we were able to return. So that's our UP Town Center home, as you can see, in collaboration with the Department of Trade and Industry. So despite the fear, tumalon kami, nag-open kami, and we're back in Katipunan. Actually, we still have a lot of videos, but since we don't have a lot of time, I'll just share with you the key learnings. I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll just share with you key learnings from the experience. One is that you can always rebuild. Kahit nawala na sa inyo lahat, you guys are the ones who build your business. So kaya nyo rin siyang itayo dahil alam nyo kung paano nyo siya tinayo before. And when you were starting out, compared to you today, you are better off. So mas meron kang skill, mas may knowledge ka, mas may experience ka to rebuild. Another is you are more than your dream. Ibig sabihin, kung nawala lahat ng pinangarap mo dahil sa crisis, hindi ibig sabihin yun na yun for you. You can always dream new dreams. And lastly, please stick to your pivot plans. I know that we are already in the new normal, but it doesn't mean na na-solve na natin yung weaknesses of our business model before. Nangyari yung crisis, it highlighted the weaknesses of our business model. I hope that we can continue with our plans so that in the event, knock on wood, na may mangyari ulit na ganito, hindi na po tayo bigla-biglang mawawala yung business kasi hindi tayo ready. And my advice to designers and design businesses, before we begin to solve the world's problem with our designs, we need to save ourselves, we need to save our brand, and we need to save our businesses. So I encourage everyone to sit down, go back to the drawing table, and assess whether or not your business can sustain a crisis. Do you have multiple sources of income? And if one source of income closes down, will the others sustain you? If not, then your job today is to create a system or a business model that could sustain you. Because at the end of the day, the world needs your design to exist. And for that to happen, your business needs to exist. Thank you.
That was amazing, Roma. Space is a place, and our state of being can be made better through innovative connections. Common Room proves that storytelling and soft power transcends the visual and the physical. We wished early on today, before everything started, we wished for design to manifest in different relevant sectors. Remember? Roma and Maan's strategy to shift the concept of space to opportunity perhaps can be a blueprint moving forward. So thank you very much for that. I would like to invite all the ladies to turn on their mics and speakers and to join me up here. Anya. Unmute yourselves. There we are. All right. I'm going to kick this off with a couple of questions. Everyone can also type in the questions in the chat box if you'd like. A prevalent and very palpable energy that I felt throughout all of this was terror and fear, and we all know that, right? But at your most difficult moments, when it was the most terrifying, what kept you going? All right, anyone can jump in. Go right ahead. Petra, you want to start it off?
Okay, yeah. I think what I really liked about Anya and Roma's talks is that they really have people at the heart of it. And I think it's the same case for us. What really drove us was our team. I think personally for, also Kay and Koi, because we're in the execom of and a half, we just thought about, how can we take care of the people in our team? How can we empower them? And how can we also get them through this pandemic? Because at the end of the day, it's really just about making sure that people are taken care of. They're not. If you have an opportunity to also take care of a community and people, that's what really drives you, because it's, you also feel, I guess, with empathy, you feel, everyone's burden, you feel how hard it is, and you're just forced into creative thinking because there's no other way. So that's really what kept us, I think, pushing forward. It's our love for community and our love for our team.
All right. So it's a sort of you're now kicked into survival mode now, and then you now begin to start thinking, what are the tools that I've got in my pocket right now, and how can I, whip up a Swiss Army knife to get everyone to survive this? Oh my God, right?
Exactly.
Right? Anya, yes. Was that the same for you?
Yes, I think what's interesting about everyone's story is how much we anchored on the sense of community. And for us, it was the same. Like actually, in both sides of the spectrum in our ecosystem model, when the pandemic hit and we were very vulnerable and transparent about our situation, our community of customers, proud weavers, as we call them, and I even nakilig ako kasi si Roma nakasuot pa ng anthill skirt niya sa video. But everyone showed up for us. And So it was also very motivating. It was the nudge we needed. If other people are showing up for you, why can't we show up for ourselves? So ganun yung impact niya sa amin. But on the other hand also, when we were conversing with our partner artisans, and because they had a savings program, and they were reflecting on like their own pivot strategies, a lot of them went back to the earth, went back to the soil. And to us, that was so beautiful, for them to share that they're going back to the basics. They're going back to what they already have. It also was a reflection point for us to really go back to the drawing board, as everyone was saying, and look at what our strengths are and realize that the abundance is already in front of you. And these inspiration and learning all came from the community, and that really what allowed us to keep moving forward.
Rama, you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And you've got so many crafters, hanging on to you guys. What kept you going? I mean, your videos was there, but I can imagine parang you're so put together, but I have a feeling you were sort of biting nails at the, behind the scenes, right?
Yes, definitely. Maraming pag-iiyak na naganap. And katulad ng sinabi ng ating mga speakers today talaga, kailangan mo talaga ng pagkakapitan. Kasi kung wala ka talagang pagkakapitan, ang dali-dali na talagang mag-give up. Actually, ang daming point sa last 2 years na gusto ko na ng simple life. Like, let's close the store, pack up, get the whatever we can get, and then just move on with our life and maybe start over. And then again, katulad nga ng sinabi ko, 2020, inako namin. 2021, we realized, bakit namin kailangan akuin? Hindi kami nag-iisa. We have our community. And this is not just our future. This is their future. And they should have a say in this future. That's when we decided, okay, ano pa yung pwede natin gawin? And that's when we realized we can do so much more. Dahil hindi namin kailangan gawin na kami lang. We can do it together with our 200 makers and artists and all of the people who support the community and want the community to continue.
A lot of what we say about the defining, sabihin nating concept, for Filipino design is malasakit, and it's actually a criteria in the Good Design Awards. And I suppose it's a very indigenous term for all of us, but you have all sort of shown us how to quantitatively and qualitatively show it. And the numbers are showing up. Like, for example, si Commoner is back in Katipunan. And a half has expanded beyond what they thought they could. And Anthill continues to uplift all of the weavers. So there is something to be said about the human-centric sort of design thinking that helps everyone evolve. No? Okay, one last question. What is the creative skill that you keep? We talked about having a sort of Swiss Army knife, of skills that you bring up at times of crisis. But name one that is dear to you. Roma mentioned, for example, crunching back to numbers, getting back to numbers, or touching with your community. What's yours, personal? See, Corinne and Kay.
I think for me, it's really embracing uncertainty. I think that's so important, especially if you're a business, whether it's a personal thing or whether it's for an organization. I think we don't know anything, as what the other speakers mentioned also. We don't know if this is going to happen again or if we'll encounter more problems as they come. But I think that open-mindedness and that willingness to always be a beginner is so important.
It's absolutely terrifying to consciously race towards the uncertain, right? I mean, yeah. What about you, Kay?
I think for me personally, it's the idea of pakikipagkapwa. I think when we were trying to create modules for our workshops, we were trying to translate empathy. And wala siyang equivalent in the Filipino language, diba? And probably meron, but it's not really equivalent to what empathy is. Pero I guess I realized in all of the things that happened from the pandemic, napaka-importante ng pakikipagkapwa or pakikiramdam kung ano yung na-experience ng kasama mo. Or, well, within and a half, we really tried to accommodate for everyone's needs as best as we can. And it was really sobering for us. Maraming realizations and maraming learnings, but at this circles back to what Kowi said, that embracing that sort of chaos na possible na pwedeng mangyari is what we really took away from the past 2 years.
I'm just going to like spice it up a little bit. Roma, you touched base with your community, right? What was one of the messages that you received that stuck with you and you think of even now when it's still terrifying, frankly? So what was one of the messages that you remember that you kept with you?
I guess persistent. Kasi a lot of yung buong 2 years, there were a lot of points in that journey when you think wala na talaga. Wala na tayong pwedeng gawin. But we're still here. We've returned to Katipunan. Kumbaga parang because of that persistence of finding the next step and showing up for your community, showing up for work. There are times when I don't know what to do anymore, but there's still work to be done, right? Yung mga tasks, yung mga admin tasks, you still show up for those work. And then suddenly 2 years have passed and you're still here. And I think yun yung importance because even kung gaano tayo ka-creative, if we don't believe that there's a next step and there's a solution to the problem, then there will never be a solution to the problem because the drive to find that the solution is not there. So I think the word for me is persistence, na may kaya pa, may next step pa, meron pa tayong pwedeng kapitan at meron pang tutulong sa atin if tatanungin lang nila kung pwede pa tayong matulungan.
That's so amazing. I suddenly remembered the whole plot of Fury Road, Mad Max. You know, they go straight into the desert and what do? They go right back. And you think it's like, okay, so nothing happened. But in poetry, for example, repetition is change. And now you come back feeling better about yourself, evolved, right? And ready to show up for your community as well. Very quickly, Anya, what did you bring with you that your community gave you? Unmute, Dai. Unmute.
Sorry. I was gonna say it was it's very parallel to what Kuya and Kay shared. To me, it was the detachment to outcomes. I think that was really my biggest learning the past 2 years until now. It's still teaching me a lot. Coming from that great plan of celebrating our 10th year, it took a while for us to accept that it's something that can never happen anymore at that scale, I guess. But who knows, right? But I think that's the golden nugget of detachment, and really being able to be fully present in the process and in the journey. And another thing that really kind of had an imprint in the team is the power of dialogue. And that's also part of the process, right? That's also part of the beauty of the process. That's a gift of the process, really. So now I think I would like to say, I think we're better communicators. We're able to actively listen. And the same goes for our partner artisans and our customers. There's more of an open, safe space for conversation. And it's not just a one-way thing. And that's the gift of the process.
I got goosebumps just talking to all of you. And first and foremost, I would like to thank all of you for sharing your energy. All right. I'm absolutely very inspired. It was a pleasure to be your panelist. I'd like to sum up this amazing afternoon with 3 words, all right, that I hope everyone who is watching this can bring with you as creatives, as innovators, as designers, as survivors, okay? First of all, ecosystem. Because what we create is a dynamic living thing for life, right? We are integrated in a system of cultures, influences, structures, financial, administrative, ecological, and we do not walk alone, all right? That is to say, our opportunity to provide support is equal to the support we receive moving forward. Collaborate, connect. Second, evolution. Because human-centric design is organic, it is not tethered to rules and traditions. It refines and defines rules and traditions. Ask, how can we improve this? What can I do in my agency to improve this? And how can I provide agency to others as well? And finally, risk and renewal. A classic line goes, every new beginning comes from every new beginning's end. And the sheer terror that we all sort of feel about change should also be compounded by anticipation. What form do I take after I rise from the ashes? All right. Again, remember that design is a living thing, and designing with malasakit means that life goes on. All right. There you have it. Nothing quite beats Filipino ingenuity and a human-centric, malasakit-oriented strategy beating otherwise impossible odds. Thank you to everyone who joined today's session. At this point, I would like to call on all the speakers. Okay, we're all here to join us for a photo op. All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay. We value your feedback. Please take the time to let us know what you thought of this roundtable by scanning the QR code. You will find it in your screen and completing the feedback form. There it is in green. All right. We have so much in store for you in the coming days. For updates on all things related to Design Week, head on over to the social media accounts, DTI-Design Center of the Philippines on Facebook and at DTI.DesignCenterPH on Instagram. All right. Once again, on behalf of the Design Center of the Philippines, we would like to thank our Design Week partners, the Department of Trade and Industry, our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board, First United Building, and HubMake Lab, our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, as well as our live stream partner, and our official online magazine partner, our media and government partners, and our satellite events. Keep your posts and stories coming. For all of your Design Week love notes on social media, don't forget to use the hashtags, hashtag DesignWeekPH2022 and hashtag Design for All. Thank you once again to our Design Week community, and we hope you can join us for the rest of Design Week Philippines 2022. I'm Batiquin. It was very good thing to have you guys here. Thank you.